Hi, I'm Alex, the occasional storyteller. Tonight's sleep story takes us along a short hike on the Appalachian Trail up to a beautiful overlook called Dragon's Tooth. Rest easy. Breathe in and out, and the biting chill of a waning winter will touch the back of your ribs. You still have to contend with summer, but the last vestige of spring is making itself known. The wind is blowing, but you only know this because the tops of the pine trees swish back and forth. Down here among the unfurling ferns, the air is calm, but not stagnant. It's a stillness only relative to the city you left behind hours ago. The gravel under your feet crunches in time to the rhythm of your walk. You glance down as the sound changes from a crunch to something more like scissors closing. This is a sandy stretch of the trail as you cross a small open meadow. You picture in your head the thousands of feet walking this trail which turned those rocks into sand. Each step was a part of a journey you can't understand because everyone does this for a different reason. You are a third of the way along your northbound through hike of the Appalachian Trail. Just behind you is the Audie Murphy Memorial, which sits just off the trail. Murphy's a World War II hero who became a movie star after his service. He died in a plane crash near this part of the trail on the eastern side of Brush Mountain, which you're now walking over. This part of the trail is called the Green Tunnel. The end of the Green Tunnel lies in sight if you stand on the right peak. A few miles ahead, you will ascend to the first peak of the Virginia Triple Crown. This feat is a milestone you anticipated since leaving Mount Rogers several days ago. The Green Tunnel is like a blanket of life cocooning you from the real world off trail. This is a liminal world at the edge of knowing. The pace here is human scale. No motors, no electricity, just food, water, and walking. At night, the leaves rustle, and you doubt the wind is at fault. Instead, you imagine some dance, a celebration of the coming of a new day. There are many different kinds of trees here. You see longleaf pine, loblolly pine, Virginia pine, black locust, eastern redbud, red spruce, white cedar, black willow, black walnut, big tooth aspen, cottonwood, bitternut hickory, sweet birch, river birch, chinkapin, beech, white oak, red oak, black oak, slippery elm, magnolia, sycamore, sugar maple, black gum, and ash. It's good that you brought along that heavy tree identification book. These trees see every single hiker pass along this trail. Their memory stores every campfire story told beneath their branches. Their shelter protects you from rain and sun and wind. Part of this journey belongs to them. Now you're hiking downhill through gentle switchbacks. The sand underfoot gives way to a spongy bed of pine needles. Your footfalls are silent now, and you pick up the trilling sound of a small stream tumbling over rocks and roots. The switchbacks can be frustrating, but today their gentle sweep calms the tired legs and sore back. A switchback in the trail follows the flow of the earth. The curves pull you along, but steep climbs loom ahead, and you are strong enough for them now. Like the butterfly emerging from the cocoon, you will pass from this green tunnel as something different than how you entered. The chill on the wind increases as you drop lower into the valley. The sun doesn't make its way down to the forest floor here, so little ground cover blocks your view. With this clear view down the hill, you glimpse a straight line, rare in nature, and realize a road lies ahead. These roads that cross the trail are the signposts and distance markers that mark your progress. The wooden markers tended to by volunteers up and down the over 2,000-mile trail tell you the distance you've traveled, at least by human measure. But these roads make that distance real. They are intrusions of a measurable and whole world outside this vibrating bubble. This must be State Highway 620, you think, as you pull out your map and check for road cues once more. This is a pattern you learned over the last several weeks. It will continue all the way north to Mount Katahdin. But you're a long way from there. For now, you cross a short wooden footbridge, slippery from the cool condensation rising off Trout Creek. You step around to the edge of the creek and slip off your pack. Your muscles relax as the weight leaves them. The biting air is refreshing. It makes you take an expansive, deep breath as you arch your arms over your head. Breaks like this are a luxury over the course of a 10-hour day of hiking. They serve to mark the time to eat, a chance to pause your motion and let the unsilent silence soak into your skin. Sit down on the creek bank and listen to the tumble and gurgle of the water chants as it gallops over rocks rounded by eons of this waltz. Along this trail, there is often no other human sound except your breathing. It is a solitude that connects on the deepest level. Dipping your water filter into Trout Creek, the unmistakable sound of tires on the gravel road grows louder at your back. A group of young people pile out of the car and start setting out a cooler and plastic box of snacks beside the trailhead. This is trail magic. People who live near the trail often bring sweet and salty snacks along with fresh water. They set out the goods near the trailhead. Sometimes you find it with no other evidence of anyone around. Other times, the trail angels offer a word of encouragement and a ride into town, if you need it. Today, you have somewhere to be. You try to play it cool, but you spy Oreos in the box, and it has been so very long since you ate one. Remembering the rest of your trail family, you only take a few, offering sincere thanks. The typical questions come, and you answer them. Northbound, through hiking. First time. Not yet. Call me West Wind. These trail angels might think you are being short or aloof. You do lose some of those social skills after so much time alone. But that's the point of this whole adventure. The conversation inside never dies down. It changes, though. The change is the summit. With water and a magical stash of black and white cookies, you say thank you again. Lifting your pack to your back is easier now than a month ago. You are stronger, and the smiles come more often. You glance at the map, but the white blazes tell you all you need to know. The wooden sign on the other side of the road tells you Dragon's Tooth is 5 miles up the trail. The map shows you the smooth sweep up and around the ridge, taking you to your destination. A short, easy climb takes you up and away from 620 and Trout Creek. The laughter of the trail angels follows you, but soon recedes into whispers. A mile in, you pass a campsite at Pickle Branch. The campsite has a strong water source, but because of the trail angels and Trout Creek, you have plenty until the next water stop. Before you see them, the murmurs and laughs of some hikers resting there at Pickle Branch bounce over the hills to your ears. It still surprises you what sound does among these hills and dales. Sound plays tricks, but you learn to hear what's most important. The actual campsite sits a few hundred yards off the trail, so you only notice from a distance the few hikers resting in a loose circle around an empty fire pit. You don't recognize the packs or the clothes, so they must be day hikers. This part of the trail gets busy, but so far you have been alone most of the time. The craving for company comes, and goes unbidden. You have slowed down or sped up to find someone or to avoid them. A skill learned on this trail. You listen to that inner voice more than you have before. Here at Pickle Branch, you are drawn up the ridge, leaving this place behind. The constant motion of arriving and leaving is sometimes the most important feeling to listen to. The names along the trail often beg questions about how they came to be. Pickle Branch is on the list. You'll forget most of the stories you tell yourself about these names and these places. At the end of this, you might struggle to remember what was real, what was myth, and what was wishful thinking. You put one foot in front of the other. No step is all that different from another, but each one leads you to your goal. Each small effort repeated countless times will mean you finish your through hike. Accomplishment happens that way. You do a little bit, over and over and over, and then you're done. It's not heroic. It's not easy, but it is simple. Another mile in, and you stop, surrounded by long grass, in a secluded meadow sheltered from the winds by the ridge ahead of you. The breeze dances over the grasses and wildflowers. A small animal rustles at the edge of the tree line as bees make their way from flower to flower. Do their small wings spread the dense, sweet fragrance of the flowers, or is it the breeze? You kneel and tie your shoe. You don't know how long it was untied. In a crouch, you hear a breath and glance up to find a deer making its way across the meadow. It only looks your way once and is back at chewing the long grass. You detect its musky scent as it plays counterpoint to the fragrant flowers. The deer places its legs with care as it ambles back the way you came. The deer is headed for water farther down the mountain. You recognize the rhythm and regularity in the deer's daily journey in search of food and water. It wouldn't be boring to have a routine that felt so necessary, so instinctual. On the other side of the meadow, a tree with an odd bend in its trunk stands at the edge of the tree line. It looks like its zigzag is bent into the trunk. This is a marker tree, or trail tree. Native American tribes bent young trees to grow in this shape. They often mark the way to a water source, or to the direction of a trail, or important nearby location. That's the story you heard. The sun is high above you now as you move with increased rhythm along the ridge, but it's not hot. The earlier chill remains. The trail is trickier now, with more rocks and a few scrambles and squeezes between boulders and cracks. Still, you find it smooth going with the swish of your shorts and the constant of your breathing propelling you through every challenge. You glance to your left off an overlook. The sight came up on you by surprise. You don't find it marked on any map. It is nameless. It appeared without expectation after you turned to go around a giant pine tree. The shock of this expansive view sends a tingle across your skin. The brightness of the sun makes you squint, and you put on sunglasses for the first time today. Standing on the granite slab, you take in the view of the entire valley. This isn't the peak, but the view is worth a few minutes pondering. You sit with your feet at the edge of the rock. A few houses float like ships in the sea of green forest. Smoke rises from one home's fireplace along with its dry, stinging odor. You find a fire strange this time of year, but also comforting. A picture forms of a family gathered around a warm hearth. You imagine the youngest child glances through the window and notices a flash of your reflective pack or the orange of your hat. Do they know the trail is here? Have they sat in the same spot and seen their own house? Will they someday become the caretakers of this place? Day hikers pass you more often as you hike closer to Dragon's Tooth. The trail is rockier now, and you scramble over a number of piles of boulders. Like piles of play blocks abandoned by some giant toddler, The boulders are at once immovable monoliths, yet also playful and inviting. You draw an odd power standing on top of them. The trail starts to climb with vengeance at this point. You use your hands on your knees to power up the hill with your heels not touching the ground. This is when your pack feels the heaviest. As your heart rate increases, it feels required, necessary. There should be some work done to see this peak. There should be some sweat. It's small payment for the wonders you have seen. The trees at this elevation are smaller. Likely, the top of the mountain experienced its share of windstorms and fire over the years. The old growth is long gone. Because they are smaller, there are more trees, making it hard to see around the gentle curves in the trail. You walk easy now across this flattened top of the mountain. The trail widens before opening on to a large, sandy area. You are at the summit of Dragon's Tooth. 2 vertical slabs of rock stand ahead of you, pointing at the sky. This is the tooth. Through a small gap between them, the smallest glimpse of the next 2 jewels in the crown is visible: McAfee Knob and Tinker's Cliffs. Several more miles of hiking before you get there. For now, you drop your pack and squeeze along a crevice in the tooth to reach the true pinnacle. You spin around the 360-degree view, and you wonder how far it is you can see. The breeze keeps the sky cloud-free, and the sun shines down on you with purpose, but you still aren't hot. From this vantage point, you are standing on the bow of a ship, climbing over the crest of a verdant wave before dropping down into a valley of swirling leaves and branches. The name Dragon's Tooth, but you like being a sailor better. To the west, you imagine you can see West Virginia. To the east, you get a narrow view of what must be Roanoke. You pull the last of the Oreo cookies out of your pocket and nibble on them as the early afternoon sun sneaks behind a few new clouds. Their sweet, chocolatey smell feels forbidden while surrounded by this natural gift. You are alone and connected in equal measure. The tunnel of green you hiked through for the last few days is now an ocean on which you float. A contented sigh escapes your lips as your arms reach up to the limits of your straining muscles. You breach the surface of a lake under which you swam for 2 breaths too long. You made it to Dragon's Tooth, and there is so much more ahead.